Hey, Sandra here. So this is going to be a quick video. I just want to talk about cracking jokes with respect to political ideology. Now, there's a common perception that I think is a misperception, which is that generally people on the left are pretty hostile to jokes. People on the right will be like, oh, I'm just making jokes. Why can't you take a chill pill? Lighten up. Why so serious? Joker face. I think that that's silly and kind of a misunderstanding of the dynamic here, all right? There's a corollary to this that I want to go into first, though. A lot of times, shows that are very cynical about everything, and that gives them, it's a smart position to take because it gives you license to talk about a whole lot of topics and make fun of all of them. Like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's perhaps the best example. South Park, to a lesser extent Rick and Morty, wubba lubba dub dub. All these shows are generally hold nothing sacred, and media critics often call that nihilist or centrist or just generally like true neutral. I think that's wrong. So if you're a true neutral in America, you're a centrist, you're a neoliberal capitalist, which is a right-wing ideology. It's a hierarchical system, a relatively rigid one. And that means there are a lot of things you kind of shouldn't make fun of, that it's like kind of discouraged to. I've talked to a lot of conservatives in my day. A lot of them are very hesitant to say anything bad about their bosses, or which is, understandable to an extent. You don't want to get fired. But you wouldn't be so afraid of your bosses if you were unionized. And more than that, they seem to just have a reverence for them. Ditto with founding fathers, nationalist stuff. Ditto with the billionaires who practically run our society. Don't say anything bad about Elon Musk's dick rocket, or Bezos will drone strike you, or whatever. There's a real sense that these guys are kind of sacrosanct, which is a shame because that leaves a lot of cultural ground that you can't make fun of. And if your idea of humor is SJW cringe compilations, or kind of just being racist and being like, joke's on you, I'm not really racist, but people don't know you well enough to know if you are racist or not, and honestly, let's be real, if you're really right-wing, you probably are a little racist. That I don't think that's very good humor. There's one layer to it, and it's shock value. And B, you could be making much better jokes about a much wider range of topics. Those two things are just two genres. If you moved left, that's my appeal. If you moved left, you can make fun of more stuff. Hear me out, right? Making fun of everything is not a politically inert position, and it's certainly not centrist, and it's definitely not right-wing. There are a lot of things you can't joke about if you're right wing. Gay sex, abortions, bathrooms, Mr. Potato Head. The list goes on and on about things that conservatives might get triggered about if you crack a joke on it. There's a lot of sacred turf. On the left, on the other hand, one of its defining features is that it's deeply skeptical of hierarchy. And given that we live in a very hierarchical society, that's just sort of the way it is. We rank people a lot. We have tier lists for everything, so to speak. Leftism is the best perspective to deconstruct those things from, to mock them from. So I would say being an anarcho-communist or a post-leftist is by far the best position to be making satire, or to be making fun of silly things that humans do in general. The main difference between the two, in case you're curious, is anarcho-communists sort of do have this fundamental, I'm not going to call it naivety, but maybe optimism is a more positive word. I consider myself to be a part of them, and so I say naivete with peace and love. It sometimes seems starry-eyed to me, but I hope it's true. The idea is that generally when people, all their needs are met, food, housing, electricity, mental health care, hentai, gaming, when all their core pivotal needs are met, people will generally not be horrible dicks to people they know personally. So like their family, their friends, they won't screw them over to the point where like they're murdering each other usually. And that a lot of violent crime and all the dysfunction we have today is mostly due to humans being in an environment that encourages people being at each other's throats. Hell, the highest rated show in the last decade is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. They're billionaire psychopaths. And that's part of the fun of the show, I admit. But like some people unironically think they're role models. A lot of people. And it's the highest rated show. And even if you don't think they're role models, being exposed to that 24/7 sort of normalizes psychopathic behavior. So there's a strong argument to be made that people are conditioned kind of into being shitty by the culture we live in. So what ANCOMs think is that in the absence of that, if people were treated better, people would probably be less shitty and it would be possible for us to kind of just get along. And not perfectly maybe, but if we're interdependent enough that we can't really do without each other, especially on a macroscopic level of a confederation of workers' unions or something like that, we would probably not be as shitty to each other as we are now. I think that's a defensible belief. But it is optimistic about one thing. Human nature is sort of in a vacuum, or at least in a state where needs are met. Post-leftists are leftists who are kind of burnt out, and post-left anarchists are deeply skeptical of all hierarchies and also humans without hierarchies. The reasons for this, there could be a lot of them. For one, it could just be that they don't think we can get to a point without hierarchy. So being optimistic about it is stupid, and you know, they tend to be very depressed about that. Or that we sort of can't reach, or that even if we did reach it, people would continue to be shitty. And that perspective, I would say, technically lets you make fun of still more. We're like, oh, you know, people working at the food bank trying to feed the poor are secretly really shitty people just in it to get laid. Like, that's sort of the perspective you could take as a post-leftist, that as an ANCOM, it'd be like, hey, come on, man, like, they're trying. So I suppose there is a few extra groups you can make fun of if you're a post-leftist. But for the most part, absolutely the bottom left corner of the political compass, as far as you can go, is the ideal place to go if you want to be funny, if you want to make jokes, if you want to be like the Joker, if you want to be ultimately cynical about everything around you. That's where you should go. And it's not in an edgelord way. It's where you're tearing shit down because it's fucked and it doesn't deserve to exist. Maybe one day we can build something better. Till then, you should laugh at how ridiculous the civilization we've built up is. And slonk gangweed, and we live in a society, bottom text. That's what you should do, dear 4chan memers, if you want to truly find the funny. Go left. That's it. That's my bit.